Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another crocheting video. So today I actually wanted to make something for Valentine's Day, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So I kind of have a bit of time to work through things, but at the same time, I am in a bit of a time crunch if I want to get this video up before or on Valentine's Day. But anyways, okay, so let me show you guys the yarn that I plan on using. So first I have this, which is actually very big. So this is the Big Twist Value Pound yarn. So this is 100% acrylic and this is in the colorway light rose. So yeah, it's really pretty and there is a lot of yarn in this skein that I can use. And I also have this, which I'm very excited to use because as you can see, there's glitter in them, or glitter yarn, I guess. So this is the Big Twist Twinkle yarn. It's 97% acrylic and 3% metallic fiber, which is the glitter or the shimmer that you see. When I saw this yarn in Joann's, I really wanted to try it out because I was very intrigued with the glitter and I'm very excited with what I can make with it. So yeah, I ended up getting these two skeins. And originally my plan was to actually make a hexagon shirt out of these two yarns. But then in the end, I was like, maybe these yarns are kind of too thick for a flowy hexagon shirt for me to wear in the summer, since these are weight for acrylic yarn. So I kind of pushed that idea aside. But then I was thinking what else I can make with this yarn. But since they have this pink and red color scheme, I just thought it would be perfect for me to make something for Valentine's Day. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so the first thing that I want to make is a striped mesh sweater. And after making this mesh sweater, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have some yarn left over because I do have quite a bit of yarn. So with the yarns that I will have left, I plan on making a little bag. I'm very excited to make that, but I will be making the mesh sweater first. So I'm going to get right into it and I'm very excited to see everything come together.
A few moments later.
Okay. Hey everyone, it has been a couple of days. The first clip you saw was filmed on January 25 and it is currently February 6 today. I know I'm wearing the exact same shirt, and what were the odds that I'm wearing the exact same shirt, but it has been a couple of days and I have actually finished a bulk of the sweater that I was talking about. Okay, so here is what I have done so far. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad, right? I was planning on finishing this sweater, but then I don't really like this detail here, how this red stripe meets the neck ribbing on this area. So after I encountered that, I kind of lost motivation to finish the sweater. And low-key, I'm kind of thinking to myself that I won't really wear it as often because obviously it's very hot here in the Philippines. It's not really cold where I live, so I won't really be reaching for a sweater as often, even though this is kind of mesh and there's a lot of holes in it. I just don't think I'll wear it as much as I want to. And I'm using acrylic yarn and it is a little bit fuzzy, and the glitter from the Big Twist Twinkle yarn is slightly itchy when I wear it, so that's also a bit of an issue. So with all of that being said, I have made the crazy decision to unravel this sweater because I'm just not really vibing with it anymore. But I still like the concept of making a mesh oversized sweater, and that's what I wanted in the first place, which I kind of achieved. I could still make this similar kind of sweater next time, but with a different yarn. So for now, I'm going to sadly unravel the sweater and make something else out of it. I actually still have a lot of yarn, so I have this much of the Value Pound yarn and I have this much of the Twinkle yarn. So now that I'm going to unravel the whole sweater, I'm basically starting back from zero, but I am determined to put out a video for Valentine's Day, so I am still going to be pushing through with this vlog, but it's just not going to be the original plan that I had in mind. But yeah, so I'm just going to work on unraveling this sweater first, and I'll see where I can go from there. I got some time to think over what I wanted to make while I was unraveling the sweater, and in the end, I decided to just make a variety of bags. I still wanted to use the pink and red glitter yarn to keep the Valentine's theme going, and I think making bags was the better option to make with acrylic yarn. I wanted to make as many bags as I could before Valentine's Day, but I didn't really have a lot of time left, so I was only able to make 3 bags, but I think that is still pretty good. I gathered some inspiration from Pinterest and was very excited to get started since this would be my first time making an actual bag. Anyways, for my first bag, I decided on this one that's essentially made up of 3 big granny squares. It's pretty straightforward, so I thought it was a good bag to start with. I first made a gauge swatch using a 5.5 and 6mm hook, and in the end, I decided to use 5.5 so that the stitches are a bit more compressed. So I just started off with 4 clusters of 3 double crochets with 2 chains between each cluster and crocheted the rest of my granny square from there. Since I already knew how to make a regular granny square, this part was pretty easy for me. And for 2 of my squares, I started with the pink yarn and switched colors every 2 rounds. I did a total of 12 rounds for one square, which was about 12 inches long diagonally. And for my third square, I wanted to switch things up a bit, so I started with the red color in the center as opposed to the other 2 squares. I also left a long tail for sewing the seams from when I made my last square. To form the body of the bag, you're just going to fold your squares into triangles and position the third square beneath the first 2 squares. To attach my squares, I decided to sew them together, and I believe the sewing method is called the mattress stitch. Making sure that I'm working on the correct side of my bag, I'm basically inserting my needle under one stitch from one square. Then I'm going to go straight into the other square and going under one stitch from there. I then continued sewing the seams where the third square meets the 2 squares above it. Using the same strand of yarn, I went straight into sewing the other side of the squares together. I then weaved my ends into the inside of the bag, and once flipped right side out, the body of the bag was complete. The last step was to make the straps of the bag. I initially was planning on using regular single crochets, but instead, I resorted to this Tunisian crochet stitch. I'm also using a 5mm hook for the straps to make the stitches tighter. I made a slip knot, then went into one of the corners of the squares and pulled up 3 loops from 3 stitches. I yarned over and pulled through 1 loop, yarned over again and pulled through 2 loops. I yarned over again and pulled through another 2 loops. And lastly, I yarned over and pulled through the last 2 loops. Then I'm going to insert my hook into these vertical bars and pull up 1 loop from each bar. You should have a total of 4 loops on your hook after going into 3 of those vertical bars. Again, I'm going to yarn over and pull through 1 loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops until you have only 1 loop on your hook. I just continued to make more rows until the strap was as long as I wanted and did the same thing to the other corner of the second square. I made my straps extra long so that I could tie the straps at any length if I wanted to use the bag as a shoulder bag or as a crossbody bag. As a finishing touch, I went around the top edge of the bag and around the straps with a row of single crochets using the red yarn. And with that, my first bag is finished. For my second bag, I really wanted to make those Y2K bags with the heart pattern that I think is famously known from the Powerpuff Girls. I've been seeing this design literally everywhere, so I really wanted to make one for myself, and I thought it would be perfect to make for Valentine's Day. I found this graph on Pinterest, which is what I ended up following. The graph had a dark red border around the design, but I didn't add that anymore, so I just started with a chain of 41 for my foundation chain. This is made using tapestry crochet, where you change colors in between stitches to create your design while carrying your yarn as you work your rows. You can pretty much use any stitch you want, but I chose to go with the classic single crochet. To change colors, you're going to pull up a single crochet, but you're going to finish that stitch by pulling through with your new color. Then you can continue working with your new color while carrying your first color through the stitches. I'm just making sure that I'm carrying the yarn that I'm not using more towards the back of my work so that the color won't be as visible in the front. Then when you need to switch colors again, Just finish your last stitch with your new color and you're good to go. And since you've been carrying your yarn through the stitches, you can easily switch between the colors you need. Just make sure that your tension is not too tight so that it wouldn't tug too much on your stitches. I just had the graph open in front of me so that I could easily refer to it while crocheting, also making sure that I don't mess up the color changes. And of course, the more rows you work up, the more your pattern starts to build, which is always exciting to see. Once I was finished with my first panel, the design looked like this, which I think turned out really pretty. For my second panel, I decided to just do the exact same pattern that had the red heart in the center of the design. And here's what my two panels looked like once I was finished with them. Next, it was time to make the strap of the bag. So for the strap, I just chained 8 for the foundation chain and worked 7 single crochets across. The graph I was following included a pattern for the strap as well, but I didn't follow that anymore since I was running low on the red twinkle yarn and just chose to make the strap with the solid pink color. This was a bit more time consuming to do since single crochets work up pretty slowly, but I think that using single crochets is the better option to lessen the amount of stretch the strap would have. After making 114 rows, my strap was long enough to cover the base of the bag. Once I had that, I attached it around one of the panels using slip stitches on the inside of the bag. After attaching one panel, I then attached the other panel to the other side of the strap, which completes the body of the bag. Once flipped right side out, the seams curve in since they were worked on the inside. If you look closely, you can actually tell that I didn't attach the panels evenly, but let's just keep that a secret. I then went back to where I left off from the strap and continued crocheting more rows of single crochets. After adding about 89 more rows, I was satisfied with the overall length of the strap. Then I sewed the end of the strap to where it started. Lastly, I added a round of single crochets around the top edge of the bag and around the straps using the red yarn. I just did the same thing to the other side of the strap and my powerpuff heart bag was complete. For my third and last bag, I wanted to make this heart granny square bag. I later found that there is a tutorial for this, so I did refer to it for some parts while I was making the bag, and I'll also be linking the tutorial in the description. After deciding that I wanted to alternate the colors of the granny squares on the bag, I then went straight into making them. I followed a different tutorial for the squares since I wanted the hearts to look a bit more defined, and fortunately, I found this tutorial which resulted in the kind of heart granny square I wanted. After successfully making one granny square, I then made the rest of the hearts first. Once I finished all of the hearts, I then crocheted the squares around them. The first round of making the squares was a bit more difficult to get into since you need to insert your stitches into the third loop of a single crochet, which could be a bit tight. But going into this loop is what allows the outline of the heart to pop out. But aside from this round, the rest of the heart granny square was pretty easy to do. I made 6 pink and 6 red granny squares, which gave me 12 granny squares in total. I then arranged them in the pattern that I wanted, and the next step was to sew the squares together. I decided to use the mattress stitch again and first attach the squares where the 2 rows meet before sewing the 2 seams where the columns meet. Once I finished sewing all the squares to form 2 panels, I worked on creating their border. I started off on one side of the panel and made 6 single crochets. I turned my work and decreased 1 stitch from the next row. I was only making decreases on one side while keeping the outer edge of the panel straight. I continued to do this until I had only 1 stitch left, and it resulted in this triangle shape on the corner of the panel. I made sure to repeat the same thing on the other corner, and without fastening off, I made single crochets into each stitch all around the whole panel. Since this part of the panel was curving inwards where the squares meet, I decided to make half double crochets into the spaces instead, which lessened the curve a little bit. Once I reached the corner space of the panel, I just put 3 single crochets into the space. Here you can see me adding half double crochets again into the space where the squares meet. continued making single crochets even around the triangle sections at the top of the panel and along the top edge as well. Then I slip stitch into the first single crochet of the round. I did the same thing to my second panel, and when both were finished, they were looking a little bit warped and wrinkly, so I decided to block them. I just pinned my panels onto a foam mat in the shape and size I wanted, then went over them with my handheld steamer. I was pretty much just hovering the steamer over them and not letting the steamer actually touch the panels. After going over them with steam a couple of times, I removed the pins, and this is what the panels are looking like. They're definitely more flat now, and the shape is a bit more defined after blocking. Next, I had to make the strap of the bag. For the strap, I chained 7, then worked 6 single crochets across for each row. I made a total of 198 rows before I was satisfied with the length of the strap. And the red yarn I used for this whole strap was actually the last bit of red twinkle yarn I had left. Thank goodness I had just enough to finish the strap. I then sewed the two ends of the strap together to form a loop before adding a border of single crochets around with the pink yarn. Once the strap was finished, I attached it to my panels using single crochets. I made sure to work on the correct side of the bag so that the stitches would create a ridge around the panel. After finishing one side, I attached the second panel to the other side of the strap and weaved in all of my loose ends, and with that, my last bag is complete. Okay, so hey everyone, it's February 14 today, so happy Valentine's Day. I know the original plan was for me to upload this video by Valentine's Day, but obviously I was not able to do that because I just had no more time. But I was able to finish 3 bags. It's a little less than what I expected, but I'm still really happy with the things that I was able to make. Alright, so here are the 3 bags. So here is the first bag that I finished. This is the granny square bag, and I also made the straps extra long so that you can adjust the length to your liking. If you want it as a shoulder bag, or if you want it to be like a crossbody sling bag, you can do that by adjusting the straps. Also really cute. This is actually a pretty straightforward bag to make. If you know how to make the regular granny squares, then you'd be able to make this bag for yourself. I think this is a nice bag if you want something quick and easy to make. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And I also really like that extra detail of me changing the order of the colors on the squares. Like these 2 squares on the side of the bag start and end with pink, but then the square in the center start and end with red. So I think that's a nice little change of color, and it gives the bag a bit more pattern to it. So it's nice. And the second bag that I finished is this Y2K heart design bag, and I've been seeing these kinds of designs everywhere, and this is made up of just single crochets. And if you already know how to do the tapestry or intarsia crochet, then you should be able to do this as well. It could be a little time consuming, mainly because it's made up of single crochets, so it kind of works up a little slowly, but the overall result is still really cute. Really happy with it. I also added this red border around the strap and the top edge of the bag. The graph that I used included the graph for the strap, but I didn't do that anymore, and I just decided to make the strap solid pink, but I'm still really happy with it. And yeah, it turned out really cute. And the last bag that I made is this heart granny square bag, and I also really like this one. I also attached the front and back panels to the strap of the bag with single crochet, so it creates this ridge around the edge of the bag, which I think is a nice pop of detail. So yeah, I'm also really happy with the heart granny square tutorial that I decided to follow, because I think the heart definitely pops out a lot more, which I wanted. So yeah, this time I used the red yarn for the strap and I added pink borders around it. I was intending on making the border red as well, but then I ran out of the red yarn, so I used pink instead. But I still think it turned out really nice, and it pulled everything together very nicely. So yeah, those are the 3 bags that I made for Valentine's Day. I have completely ran out of the red twinkle yarn, but I still do have a lot of the pink value pound yarn. I was intending on making more bags than these, but I didn't really have any more time, and I was only able to whip up 3, but I think that is still pretty good. I did have more ideas, but I don't think I'll be able to execute them now that I don't have any more of the red twinkle yarn. But I'll still see what else I can make with the pink value pound yarn. But yeah, I think that ends today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me crochet all of these bags. This is also the first time that I've ever made bags. I do want to add lining to them eventually, just not in this video because I don't have the materials for it and I don't think I have the skills to add lining to my bags. If I do decide to add lining, I might actually want to add a zipper closure to these bags as well, but that's another problem for a different day. But for now, I have crocheted 3 bags and hopefully I could get good use out of them in the future. But yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out, and for my first time making bags, I think these are pretty successful and they all turned out really cute. And although this video is coming out pretty late, still happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.